for everyone. Find out more at nosuchthingasabully.com.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Visit fantasyjocks.com, your fantasy sports superstore. Championship belts, rings, trophies, and more.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
And away we go, off and running on the air here, the Sports Fix Daddy. J-Rocc cracking the microphone. That's me, by the way. Welcoming each and every one of you guys in here. It's been all week. It's been since Monday that we've been in the studio. We're back in here today talking about, of course, Browns playing yesterday. We got some preseason stuff to get into. We got the Indians, J.R. Smith coming back with the Cavs. We're going to open up the phone lines. We've got a whole lot to get into for the weekend. We got a lot to talk about here, you guys. So I don't know about you, but I assume since you came here that you're ready to rock and roll. I most definitely am. So let's get a move on here. It's a Friday end of the week edition of the Sports Fix, and we're off and rolling, locked and loaded, baby. Welcome into the Sports Fix. I am your host, the Big Daddy on the microphone, as they call me here. J-Rocc, Jerry Myers, whatever you want. Call me. Happy to have you here each and every day when we crack the mic on the Sports Fix, you guys, across the Sports Fix Radio Network, as we're having some fun. Hey, Charles, over there in the chat room. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that. Some big things going on this weekend. Welcome in, however you're enjoying the show, across the network. Maybe you're listening live on TuneIn, TuneIn's radio apps worldwide, on Spreaker.com or their respective digital and mobile apps. Maybe you're enjoying the show right off our home base, thesportsfix.net, your one-stop shop for all things Cleveland sports, the archives and replays of the show, everything you need right there built into the website. However you're doing it, welcome live. And as well, it would be remiss of me not to mention the thousands of you guys who listen each and every day, 24/7. I'm talking time zones all over the place in countries around the world, on digital delay, on sites such as iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio provider. Those of you that enjoy the show on iTunes and Stitcher Radio and CarPlay and all of the other places that you podcast, feed, subscribe, download, get your fix. Thank you guys so much for doing it. As I say each and every time we do this, it's my honor to do this and have the opportunity, and most definitely my pleasure to host you guys here. However you're enjoying the show, thank you so much. As a matter of fact, we're hit and miss here. I get that, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit here because that may become even more of a situation here coming up here. We'll talk about some things going on, but tell somebody else to tune in right now. Tell them, hey, I'm listening to J-Rocc and the Sports Fix live on TuneIn, on Spreaker, on Stitcher, on SoundCloud, on whatever you're listening to the show. Tell them to tune in. Click that little share button and tell them to join us here today. Love to have you guys with us and love to hear from you guys today. As always, the phones, we're going to crack them. Second segment of the show here, we'll crack open some phones and get some calls on you guys and the Browns and all of that. 216-539-7535. As always, the number to call, 216-539-7535. Facebook, Twitter, social media. Always the easiest way to let us know what you're thinking 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, baby. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Twitter at The Sports Fix, CLE, all one word. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix, CLE, all one word. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. We've got tons of things here, a lot of housekeeping to get into here. I guess first and foremost, let's start with fantasy football. With regular football starting up, fantasy football starting up. Of course, you guys hear us talk about our good friends at Fantasy Jocks all the time. Last year, teamed up with us to provide the championship trophies and rings, and this year, the same thing. Our friends at fantasyjocks.com have teamed up with us. We've got a custom-made championship belt, just like the kind you would see in the octagon or the squared circle of WWE, one of those fantastic championship belts that's going to go to the winner of this year's Sports Fix Fantasy Football Challenge, courtesy of our friends at fantasyjocks.com. You guys have the opportunity to play for free, as you do each and every year. Now, however, There are very limited spots, of course, so we have to pick obviously more people want in than we can let in, so we do pick them at random, but you get the opportunity. There's no cost. It's free of charge to join the league, be a part of it, and compete with myself and other listeners and some of the contributors of the show. And if you walk away at the end with the big prize, you will have this championship belt around your waist, courtesy of Fantasy Jocks. So all you've got to do is hit me up. Let me know you want to play in the Sports Fix Fantasy Football Challenge. I'll send you the invite. We have, I believe, 4 openings as it sits right now in the league. I will continue to update you on that. When it's full, it's full. The draft is going to be a live online draft. You can do it from your smartphone. You can do it from your house, computer, whatever. On September 8th, 2 days before the start of the regular season. We like to wait as late as possible just in case anybody gets hurt or anything crazy happens. I always think it's a disservice to a league to do the draft too early. So we're going to do it there on the Tuesday before the opening Thursday night game. You can get in free of charge. Send us a message on the social media, on the email. Say, hey, I want to be a part of the Sports Fix Fantasy Football League this year, and we'll see if we can hook you up. And that's, of course, courtesy of our friends at fantasyjocks.com. Let's see. A couple of other things I wanted to get into with you guys here. Yesterday, first for me anyways, to teach, instructor assist, excuse me, as I step over my own words there, at the Ohio Center for Broadcasting. I told you guys a little bit about that coming in, and I was really excited for the opportunity to get out there and be a part of that, because that's where I broke in and cut my teeth and got myself ready to get into this wild and crazy world of broadcasting. And I'll tell you what, it was, you guys know, I've mentioned it many times before, whether it's through wrestling, whether it's through radio, I've always felt that I've got the spirit of a teacher, and I love to teach guys. I've trained dozens and dozens of pro wrestlers along the years to go out there and hone their craft, and I just love I love the whole process of teaching and watching and learning and growing and watching it go from seed to flower. And man, it was the same thing yesterday, you guys. It was really cool to get in there and get my hands in on some kids' first day. But, you know, you never know where and when opportunity is going to knock at the door. And I don't have a million details on this just yet, but yesterday may have been one of those times, as it appears the Ohio Center for Broadcasting, not it appears, they are opening up a secondary program of their school, an entire different curriculum specifically for sports broadcasting, which actually I know many of you guys out there who listen, which is why I'm bringing this up, have often asked me, hey, how do I get into doing what you do? Whether it's play-by-play, whether it's hosting a show, whether it's being a producer, I want to do sports radio, I want to do sports talk, how do I do it? There's, of course, at a broadcasting school, whether you went to OCB, whether you went to a college and to a communications course, there will be some portions that address sports broadcasting, but they're opening up a separate 6-month course, which I believe will be for not only new students of the school. After you complete your course at OCB, you can take this secondary sports broadcasting curriculum, but I believe they're going to open it up to even professionals who are in the broadcasting business. Perhaps you're a board operator, or perhaps you're a producer who can't get that breakthrough to get an on-air opportunity, or you want to hone your skills and get yourself ready to get that job. You'll be able to enroll in this program. They're really just explaining all the details to me yesterday, and it appears that there may be a larger opportunity for me as a part of that to be a full-time instructor, perhaps at this new venture of the school, which has me very excited. Again, I wish I had even more details and for sure things to tell you guys about, but it's definitely something that's in the air there that has to be talked about, and obviously this show is one of the things that needs to be addressed as far as that goes, because it would definitely be a much heavier commitment. And you know, I've kind of already warned you guys about that coming up, that there may be opportunities in the works that may change the way this show goes down. We've already been so staggered over the summer as it is, but this would definitely be one. And obviously this show is one of the things that we would have to discuss to even see if there's something we could do. But I'm very intrigued by the possibilities, and I think it could be really cool to be a part of helping mold a specific sports broadcasting generation, not just broadcasters. So that's something that's in the air, something that I'll hopefully get a chance to talk to you guys more about, as I know more about as well. But that is something cool. And yesterday was a great time. I want to thank OCB for bringing me on staff, and hopefully there's much more to this relationship that's beginning to develop as it goes. And I know some of you just sent me some congratulations. I appreciate that. You know what? I'll return the favor. I've got some congratulations to throw out here as well to a couple of people, very important members behind the scenes, parts of the show, people that have been a part of what we've done. First, my man Vince McKee, the author. You guys know our boy Vince McKee. He's author of many of the great books that we've talked about here on the show on Cleveland Sports, Jacobs Field, LeBron James, the Cavaliers' History of the Wine and Gold, many different works, of course, Cleveland's Finest, Ohio Warriors. My man Vince McKee is now also going to take his writing talents to the Plain Dealer and to the Northeast Ohio Media Group, Cleveland.com. He's going to do some part-time freelance covering of high school football this year for them. So that's cool, and just another great place that you guys can see Vince McKee and his work out there on a larger scale. Very happy for him, very proud of him. Wanted to mention that on the air. Can't wait as well. Hey, speaking of that, August 28th, Game 1 kicks off of the high school season, and I'll be there at Willoughby South, Notre Dame Cathedral Latin and Willoughby South, kicking off the football season, the high school football season, and I'll be kicking it off on the airwaves of WINT 1330, broadcasting the first game of the season. I cannot wait for that one, although I'll be at Willoughby South a little bit sooner than that. I'll tell you guys about that in just a minute, but I'm looking forward to that. Congrats, and definitely a round of applause here from us to my man, Vince McKee, the author. Can't wait to see what he does with the Plain Dealer. Also, huge congratulations from all of us here, not just myself, but anybody who has been a part of the Sports Fix for the past few years behind the scenes, to my man, Doug Plagans. Of course, Doug, you guys have heard him on the air here for the last few years. I've worked with the Lake Erie Monsters basically my entire run with the Sports Fix. Ben Holden was the play-by-play man before Doug Plagans took over, and then he moved on to other endeavors, and he was kind enough to pass the torch with me to Doug Plagans and set me up with him. And Ben was a great guy to have on the show, and he really educated me to the AHL and the Monsters and the whole, just, open your eyes to a new product. Doug took that to another level with me. Same thing as well, his work with the Gladiators. But you guys have heard some of the, once a week, one of my favorite conversations of the week is my man Doug Plagans joining us and all of that. So it is with a heavy heart, yet an incredibly congratulatory one, that I say you won't hear Doug Plagans on the airwaves of the Sports Fix anymore, because Doug, no longer the play-by-play voice of the Lake Erie Monsters, he has, and this is a much-deserved promotion here, he has got the call to the big leagues. It's, of course, everybody's dream to perform at the very top of their profession, and Doug Plagans gets a chance to do that. He was announced yesterday as the new, not just play-by-play man, but the voice of the Florida Panthers' entire radio network. They've just created a whole new radio network system there, and Doug Plagans is going to be the voice of the Florida Panthers in the NHL. So awesome for him. And again, it's going to suck not to have him here on the show, but what a great opportunity for my man Doug Plagans. So you will hear him now on the big stage in the NHL for the Florida Panthers beginning this upcoming hockey season. Of course, I'm not even in the loop yet as far as who's going to replace him with the Monsters. We'll work on all of that, of course, but right now just wanted to definitely tip the cap to our man Doug Plagans. Thank him for all the time that he's made to join us and talk to us here over the years, not just about hockey, not just about football, about wrestling, about a little bit of everything here. Doug Plagans, my main man, heading to the NHL. Speaking of wrestling, you guys, real quick, last plug. Hey, I told you I had some housekeeping to do here. I mentioned Willoughby South. August 28th is the first football game of the season, and I'll be broadcasting that on 1330 WINT. But tomorrow, August 22nd, almost stomp into the gym just a little bit early at Willoughby South. There's a big fundraiser event for Willoughby South for their athletic department, a professional wrestling event called Rebels for a Cause tomorrow evening at Willoughby South High School, 7:30 bell time. Tickets are just $10 and students just $5 for students. But it's going to be a great night of action. There's going to be several fantastic matches headlined by the main event. Yours truly will be challenging Ethan Carter III, EC3, Willoughby's own Mike Hutter. He is the nationally recognized TNA Impact Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion. It's his big homecoming match, coming home with the title, with the 20 pounds of gold, blah, blah, blah. I'll be on the other side of the ring, and I'm going to make sure that it's not so happy of a homecoming for Mr. EC3. But it's going to be a great night for a great cause, me, and as well another great cause in the Willoughby South Athletic Department. So come on out, check it out. You guys are going to have a great time. I will be there, and I will definitely be I will be wearing my evil cap, that's for sure, because I've got ruthless intentions tomorrow night. But other than that, come on out and check me out. Matter of fact, if you're looking forward to seeing me at an upcoming wrestling event, this weekend is a great chance because I'm all over the frickin' map. I've got 4 shows in 2 days this weekend. Tomorrow afternoon, the 22nd, Saturday, I'll be in Meadville, Pennsylvania, as one of the stars of the Crawford County Fair, and I'll be doing a pro wrestling event there with the greatest intercontinental champion of all time, the Honky Tonk Man, if you can remember that guy. He'll be at the event. Then Saturday evening, I'll be in Willoughby for the event I just talked about. Willoughby South High School, doors open at 6:30, bell time 7:30. EC3 defending the Impact Wrestling Heavyweight title against yours truly, J-Rocc Daddy. Sunday, I'll be in Erie, Pennsylvania for Pro Wrestling Rampage. Some of you guys have come up and checked me out up there before. I'll be up there for a 1 o'clock afternoon show. Rhino from the WWE, from NXT, ECW, many of those places. Rhino's going to be on that event there, so it's another great place to come out and check out the action. And then I'll be wrapping up my weekend, getting right back in the car, and shooting out to Lorain, Ohio tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock. I've got a show out there as well. EC3 will be defending his title on that card and so much more. So a busy weekend for me. And if any of that was too fast for you, just send me a message. I'll let you know where I'm at and where you can find me. But looking forward to one big crazy weekend here before football hits, and we'll slow the wrestling down a little bit, mix some football games into it as well. I'm excited. This is the busy season for me, baby. So looking forward to seeing you guys out there this weekend for all of that. Man, is that it? Let's see. Put the broom away, the mop. I think we took care of all the housekeeping here. We got a lot of things to get into with the show here. We'll take a break here in just a few moments and get rolling. That's the Browns. And by the way, RG3 goes down again yesterday. I was talking, my son looked right at me and he goes, "Dad, didn't you just say something on the show last week about Kirk Cousins just winning that job anyway?" I said, "Yeah, but now he's really kind of in a position there, as now you've got the stinger and the concussion with RG3. Looks like that may open up opportunity there." Speaking of opportunity, segue that right into the Browns, and we'll get into it more when we get back. Josh McCown bangs up his thumb, x-rays negative. However, last year, Josh McCown, a very similar injury. He missed the next 5 games for the Tampa Bay Bucks due to the thumb injury because it caused some ligament injuries. And that's definitely going to look, there's already, I was jokingly on our social media this morning, I said, do the Browns have a quarterback battle or just no quarterback? And I'll tell you, last night's game didn't do anything to assure me or assuage my feelings in any way whatsoever as far as that goes. What were your thoughts? The Browns and the Bills, they get at it there yesterday, a second preseason game. I'm curious your thoughts on the quarterback position, on all of the things that you saw out of last night's game. Pick up the phones, give me a call, 216-539-7535, 216-539-7535. I'll get to taking some phones when we come back here, and we'll talk about the game. But again, that injury, the Browns trying to downplay it right now, but it definitely, to me, I'm telling you, it's something to keep a huge eye on because, and by the way, did anybody not watch the preseason last year either? I mean, or any other year? Because there's people losing their minds right now. I'll tell you, Josh McCown, awful yesterday. To me, what you saw, if you remember earlier in the week when we were talking about the game with Dan Wismar at the beginning of the week, we were talking about the quarterbacks, and I said, hey, I'm not trying to be that guy, but I think next week it's going to be even worse, and I think that as teams try harder, you're really going to see the deficiencies in the quarterbacks per se. Definitely saw some of that with Josh McCown yesterday, and obviously he had a very good pass rush on the other side, but it was also a very good pass rush dialed into preseason levels, not even regular season levels. I honestly believe that, obviously we'll get into the running game bit and some of the things that they did better. They're going to need to do better, because I just think that what we saw in general, no matter who is under center of the options that the Browns have, that's kind of along the lines of what you're going to see there with the Browns quarterbacks here coming up. And that is not a confidence-boosting thing at all, no matter what you want to say. To circle back to the point that I was going to make about Johnny Manziel later in the game, against the 2s, against the 3s, against guys that will not be wearing football jerseys in a couple of weeks. And we've seen that before. Please do not fool yourself into the fool's gold there. However, I mean, in all honesty, there may not be any need to fool yourself in anything, as I was saying. As much as Mike Pettin tried to put out the fire, as much as the Browns say, hey, there's no quarterback controversy, there may not be a need for one if this injury plays out like the similar injury for Josh McCown did last year. Nobody really going too crazy with that right now, but again, I bring it up, same injury, non-broken, however, he had some displaced ligaments there in the thumb, missed the next 5 games. So the opportunity, and not just opportunity in a good way, but just in general, the situation is set where the Browns may very quickly see an already tenuous quarterback position strangle into something worse. And even if it didn't, how much confidence do you have in Josh McCown after what you saw last night? Take Johnny Manziel out of the equation, but regardless of what you think of which guy is better than which perhaps on this day, or who should start what game where, and that gets into a whole nother question about next week if Josh McCown is healthy and able to play, as far as do you want to see more or do you want to get ready? Because that to me is the key point, is the Browns have now got themselves in a position again where you're not sold on the guy that's going to be the starting quarterback. However, you now have to get him ready because you've now passed the halfway point. There's no turning back now, because week 3 of the preseason, the third preseason game, is all about getting the 22 starters ready to start that game. And I'm skipping special teams. You know what I mean. I'm just talking offense and defense, your main starting thrust of players. That's what week 3 is all about. It's not about, well, I want to see a little bit more of this. That's for other roster spots, and that's opportunities that you look at as well in the game. But the biggest key of preseason game number 3 and of this point in the preseason is now we should be getting ready for the regular season. And it goes far beyond the quarterback, because with 19 players not seeing action yesterday, and I'm all about being cautious, but many of those same 19 players didn't see action in week number 1 either. That's now 2 preseason games that a large percentage of this roster has not participated in due to health reasons. That's a whole other concern, that regardless of your thoughts about the talent level at certain positions, the talent depth becomes a whole lot thinner when, no matter how good you feel that talent is, if it's not able to get out there on the field. I know it sounds like, boy, man, there's not a lot of good things to talk about here. I do think there are. Obviously, defensively, we've seen there's some ability here with this team. How much teeth they have will be much easier to judge when they've got the full complement of the defensive backs out there, because it becomes a bit harder to tell when there's starting level cornerbacks out there defending. Will that pass rush get to the quarterbacks a little bit faster? Because of course you can point to my man, the X-Man, Xavier Cooper. You can point to some of the bodies breaking free in the second half of the game in the defense or in the backfield there. That's the second half of a preseason game. And again, you're getting much more judgment off of the first quarter of that game. And in the first quarter of that game, defensively, the Browns on third down couldn't get a sniff of what they needed to do to get off the field. I know the penalty screwed them on the first one, but in general, the Bills were owning the day on third down, which is that money down, and you really hated to see that. So, look, there's good, there's bad, there's ugly to talk about. It's the second week of the preseason, and I want to talk about it with you. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll hit this Browns game from all angles, and we'll open up the phone lines, and we'll talk to you guys. 216-539-7535 is the number to call. 216-539-7535. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFix CLE. Preseason number 2 in the books. Where are you at with the Browns here in week 2, the quarterback situation, and all of that? 216-539-7535 is the number to call. 216-539-7535. We'll take your calls. We'll talk about the game. We're talking Tribe, J.R. Smith, back to the Cavs. A whole lot more to get into, but we're talking Brownies next with you here on the Sports Fix. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after the news.
Get your fix.
Because it's Friday, you ain't got no job, and you ain't got to do.
It's the Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events, Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
How to be a great dad in 15 seconds. Bike ride, go fish, walk in the park, phone call, milkshake, play catch, picnic, fly a kite, tell jokes, laugh, talk, read a story, tell a story, bumper car, swing set, bowling, pillow fight, cut loose, stay tight. Whew. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com. Sports Fix listeners, do you tweet? So do we. So tweet with us 24/7 at the Sports Fix CLE. Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Harry Buffalo. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
News break.
Good morning, I'm Bob Picozzi. There are 2 new starters and a third has changed positions. The Seahawks' revamped offensive line should receive significant playing time tonight when Seattle visits Kansas City in its second preseason game. Browns coach Mike Pettin insists there's no quarterback controversy. Josh McCown is his starter, despite throwing 2 interceptions in 10 pass attempts in last night's preseason loss to Buffalo. Johnny Manziel completed 10 of 18 for 118 yards and a touchdown. Could he become the starter?
That's still up to Pet. I'm just doing what I'm told. Coming out here, getting the most of the reps that I'm getting. I was very happy, very thankful today to get the whole second half. So, build on this and go into another preseason game. We got 2 more left. all I can really do is take care of myself, continue to try and play at a good level.
McCown injured the ring finger in his right hand last night, but x-rays were negative. Pirates manager Clint Hurdle says he may get shortstop Jordy Mercer and third baseman Josh Harrison back this weekend. Mercer on the disabled list with a strained knee. Harrison after undergoing thumb surgery. Second round of the Wyndham Championship in Greensboro. Davis Love III is 4 under for the day through 10 holes, 10 under for the tournament. He leads by 2 strokes. Tiger Woods 6 under, tees off at 12:50 Eastern.
If you're ready to buy a new car, there's just one last thing to do. Check with TrueCar. Just configure the car you want, see what others paid for it, and lock in guaranteed savings from TrueCar certified dealers. Download the TrueCar app today.
Hey Cleveland, this is Mo Williams, and you're listening to Sports Fix.
Just kick a little something for them cars that be bumping.
Yeah, all right, but we need a beat that they can front to. Oh, that'll work. Be funky. You know what I'm saying? Cars ride with the booming system. Cars ride with the booming system. Funky. For all the cars out there and all the brothers. I like the front they ride. Check it out. You know it's funky, 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 because you heard it from hearsay. A jam that you love that don't be getting no.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live. J-Rocc back with you here, and we're getting ready to move on, crack the phone lines, get you guys involved in on the conversation. Welcome back into the show, everybody that's with us live across the Sports Fix Radio Network. We are rocking and rolling, baby. As I said, getting ready to crack the phones. 216-539-7535 is the number to call. 216-539-7535. Facebook and Twitter, easy ways to get through 24/7. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Twitter at The Sports Fix CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. We're going to talk a little bit of Browns here as last night. Preseason already halfway in the books. 2 games down, 2 games to go. Where are you at? Thoughts on the Browns thus far? Listen, I thought back to my little spiel there to go into the break, and I'm thinking, boy, man, I've got to say, as much potential, and this is legit, not using one of those cliche words, as I see around many, many, many parts of this Cleveland Browns roster, I've got to say that overall, this is one of the least enthusiastic of the recent run of seasons that I felt heading into the season. And I mean, the more I see with my own 2 eyes here in the first couple of weeks of the preseason, without making the preseason the big deal that some people overblow it to be, at the same time, I mean, you know, how many years do people do the opposite and go, well, it's just the preseason, it's just the preseason. Then game 1 drops and you go, oh, damn, they're not any better. Of course not, because not everything that happens in the preseason is just the preseason as well. Every team has different reasons that they do what they do, ways that they play, things that they're working on, all of those things. So it's very hard to judge the preseason standalone before you hit the regular season. But there are things that can project out, and those are the things that scare me the most about what we've seen in the first 2 weeks, and especially just from week 1 to week 2 in the preseason. There were a few things I was primarily worried about offensively, and they definitely reared their head yesterday. While I will say that the question, perhaps biggest question that I had offensively outside of quarterbacks and wide receivers and that part of it may have made me feel a little bit better, because I am encouraged by what I saw from T. West in the running game last night. At least I do believe that he appears to have stepped up at least to the challenge of, hey man, these guys are giving me an opportunity, but they're not going to hold it open for me forever here. And there was at least some encouraging stuff that came out of that. But let's talk about all of that with you guys. 216-539-7535, Facebook.com/The Sports Fix, Twitter at The Sports Fix CLE. Last night, the Browns, the Redskins, end of the game results. I don't even get into that portion of things. The Browns did lose the game. I'll tell you what, I'm not even going to lie. I don't care what the final score was. If they had not gone for 2, and speaking of Buffalo, I may have thrown something at my television, because that was a tedious football game that we watched yesterday. And you know it. There was a point where Had any color been on that jersey other than the orange and the brown, there's no way any of you would have been watching that. There's no way any of you out there would have been watching that game had the word Browns not been a part of that game whatsoever by the end. And then when Buffalo tied it with that touchdown, I said, no, not overtime. I mean, honestly, I thought, boy, here we go with an extended period. Overtime in a preseason game may just be the scariest proposition that's out there, wouldn't it? If I was an NFL coach, that would be the last thing I would ever want to see is overtime on a preseason game. But the Bills were able to, perhaps for everybody, they went and put us out of our misery with that 2-point conversion last night. But that's the end result. I go forward to the beginning of the game again, and I look for some tenets of some good things defensively. For all the hey, well, the Browns defense this and that, and I'm one of those guys that's very much hanging my hat, at least for this season, on what the Browns are going to do on that defensive side of the ball. I go to those third downs, and while we're pointing at negativity there, once again, not just this year, last year, the year before, every year, the biggest of the Achilles heels defensively for the Browns has been inability to stop the run and inability to do anything on third down. Get no pressure. The other team always dictates to the Browns on third downs. And in the part of the game where it was our best against your best, our starters against your starters, however you want to look at it, they owned the field when it came to third downs once again. Yeah, later in the game, we did show some ability to get some pressure. And I'll tell you what, should we ever line up this season against the entire backup offense of another team, I feel pretty good about the possibility of us getting some pressure on the quarterback. But seeing as how most NFL teams have this crazy idea of throwing their starting unit out from beginning to end during the regular season, I do have a bit of a concern about some of the things that we saw yesterday from the defense, from the quarterback. And again, another thing that makes it hard to judge is that you're missing so many pieces. Defensively, this is why I say I have a hard time gauging exactly where they are. I do believe that Mike Pettin was dead on when he said both of these defenses could be top 10 defenses by the end of the season. I do believe that. It's so hard to judge the Browns, though, because you've got to have your top defensive backs back there. You've got to have your starting unit all the way across the board, and that makes it very tough, especially when Joe Hayden's not out there, and he missed, again, another preseason game here, one of the 19 Browns that didn't play yesterday. And without that, it's hard to judge because then you've got Justin Gilbert in week 1, and he wasn't there yesterday. You've got Tremont Williams. You've got these younger guys, but several key defensive backs not out there for the Browns makes it hard to judge that. Again, offensively, too, I will criticize the quarterback and at the same time say that the biggest new weapon that the Browns got him not available for any of the quarterbacks to use in Dwayne Bowe. Same thing with Terrell Pryor. And I'll tell you what, he's got to get out there in week 3 and 4 because he's running out of time to prove he deserves a spot on this team. And I'm a big proponent of what Terrell Pryor can do. There's tons of places to go. I want to talk to you guys a little bit more. We're talking the Browns. We're talking last night. I'm going to the phones. Caller, give me some takes here. Where are you at last night? The Browns here halfway through the preseason. Caller, where are you calling from? Who is this?
J-Rocc, Daddy.
LGZ, what's up? Wow, it's been a while. What's up, my friend?
Man, I've been on hiatus, J-Rocc, Daddy. I've been taking a break from trying to get my emotions in check before the start of another letdown begins. And I got to tell you something, man. I'm disappointed, J-Rocc, Daddy. I'm deeply disappointed. And when you start talking quarterbacks and you start talking about the Browns and you start talking about Manziel and you start talking about the McClown, I just got to say one thing, J-Rocc, Daddy. You want to see Terrell Pryor, this is a perfect opportunity to put Pryor back behind center, and let's get a guy that at least has some NFL experience and at least knows how to win in the state of Ohio. I tell you right now, J-Rocc, Daddy, it's time to put Pryor back there because he cannot be any worse than what we've seen, man. And just to give you some instances of what I'm talking about, okay, big deal. Johnny Manziel beat the second-string guy. He's got downfield, scored a touchdown. What about when we got the ball back with time left on the clock, and we're down by the point that Rex Ryan went and did the I didn't see any kind of clock management coming out of Manziel. I didn't see him hurrying up to try to get out of bounds, save a few timeouts. I mean, this is all part about being a mature football player, J-Rocc, Daddy. And truthfully speaking, neither team played their best football last night, the Buffalo Bills or the Cleveland Browns. But I got to tell you one thing. When the season starts, J-Rocc, Daddy, we'll be lucky if we're going to win 4 games with the offense that we have out on the field right now, man.
Well, again, I'm not wanting to be just, that guy. And as I said, this is the least optimistic that I've been in a preseason here in a while. Not that I've ever expected, parades to be thrown for this team recently, but honestly, all the things that we've mentioned here and looking at offensively, this team is going to have whatever success it has this season defensively and in its ability to get turnovers, even more than just stopping the other team, and have short fields to work with. Because the one function of this offense that I do like is I believe they've got a nice group of unheralded tight ends. I've always liked Barnage and Dre and what they did last year, and I like Rob Hausler as well. And I even thought they drafted a couple of good tight end prospects. But either way, they've shown, I think 6 of his 10 passes went to tight ends there yesterday, and they've shown that that's going to be a function of the offense. It's going to be short passes to the tight ends. It's going to be passes to the backs out of the backfield. It's going to be quick timing stuff. The passing game is going to all be short to intermediate routes. Whether you want to look at Manziel or McCown, McCown averaged less than 6 yards a pass, and Manziel averaged about 6.5 yards a pass. So either way you go, that's not cutting it downfield. I know that Johnny had the 2 passes late in the game that were a bit more lengthy, but again, that's coming against guys that won't even have an NFL uniform in 2 weeks. And that's not to...
Well, hey, Johnny wouldn't have even been standing up that long had it been a number one starting defense.
LG, I'm not even going to shortchange the fact that Johnny Manziel is better than he was a year ago, because that's an argument that I'm not even going to bother having. Just because I'll give you that sentence does not mean that it automatically means he's good enough to play in the NFL. He's better than he was last year, because Lord knows if he couldn't have been better than he was last year, then he would just go down as one of the biggest disasters of all time. But here's a question that I lay for the biggest Johnny Manziel supporter, and that is this. You think that Brian Hoyer was garbage. And even if I'll give you that Brian Hoyer's not as good as people thought he was, and you think what you think of, what we saw last night out of Josh McCown, and I go back to the fact that this kid couldn't beat those guys out to be a quarterback. This kid is still number 2 in the depth chart behind a quarterback who looked as bad as Josh McCown did yesterday. All that says to me is we don't have a quarterback controversy. We don't have a quarterback, period.
That's what it boils down to, J-Rocc, Daddy. We definitely do not have a quarterback. And, while I like to see the Cleveland Browns try to pound the ball down their opponent's mouth, the run's only going to get you so far. You got to have some passing game to keep things honest. And neither one of those guys impressed me at all last night. I really don't believe that. I mean, just look at the size of Manziel. His arm's not the strongest when that wind's howling down there. I mean, even the long ball, 26 yards, J-Rocc, Daddy, that's not what you can consider a real long pass in the NFL. There was nothing on the football by the time it dropped in there to the receiver and the touchdown but I mean, that's not going to get you through an NFL season. That's number one. Number two, I'd say if these guys were starters, Manziel wouldn't have been standing that long to throw the football. They would have got to him. They would have broke him. I mean, you saw second string and third string linemen track him down from behind last night, man.
Well, and that's something that Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just think he's going to be hurt, man. He'll never make it through an NFL season. It's just not going to happen.
Those are things that we talk. And by the way, you'll love this point, and I didn't intentionally make it when you're on the phone, but I did laugh as I was looking at some stuff online last night after the Browns game, and I saw an article out of Philly about how great Tim Tebow's done in Eagles camp and how he's going to lock up a job here. He's going to end up winning a spot on the roster here unless he just epically flames out. And as much mocking as that name gets, I'll go back to a point that I made in the offseason, and I think it applies here now. Say what you will about Tim Tebow, but I would take him over any of the quarterbacks currently on the Browns roster. And that may be wrong, but I would take him over what we currently have. And I just think that is an interesting talk about an embarrassment of riches. They're going to have several perhaps quarterbacks over there, and the Browns are digging for one. But it goes back to my other point, and you hit it when I talked about the running game, and I was going to segue that off of the short pass attack that the Browns have, is we've seen what happens last year when the NFL decides we're done with Cleveland dumping off the short passes and running the ball. Let's make them throw the ball down the field. And that's what's got me concerned here, because the one guy that you brought in, I have no concerns about Brian Hartline. I think Brian Hartline will have the best season for a Browns receiver outside of the year that all they did was throw to Josh Gordon. I think that he will have the best season for a Browns wide receiver in quite some time. Brian Hartline is a hell of a professional wide receiver, runs great routes, and catches the ball every time you throw it to him. But Dwayne Bowe tried to move these sticks a little bit and try to go in, and he hasn't been able to get on the field. He's already got the issues and the questions of the advanced age. Now he's dealing with hamstrings, and those are questions as well. And that's what I mentioned. 19 guys not able to go. 17 guys not able to go the week before. I'm all about you don't want to hurt your guys in the preseason. Significant roster, not just guys trying to make the team that are not getting any reps, any practice together. And now here we hit the third preseason game, and there's questions about which quarterback should get more time. When you get to the third preseason game about more time, these should be how ready they are for week one, and I exemplifies how far behind the season. I do believe roster than they've had in quite some time going to come together in a way that is not good if you're a Browns fan. I just don't like, and it appears that they're going to hit the season ill-prepared.
Daddy, and like I said, this Cleveland Browns football team this year, you heard guys like Whit veterans who were talking highly of Josh McCown. He's not top 15, top 20 quarterback. It was wishful thinking on all of our parts. Guys knew what they were doing, bringing this guy in, but obviously, to me, at this point in time, I have to say, a long list have done 16 years, J-Rocc, in my life. People, you talk about guys that didn't play last time. A first-round draft isn't able to go well in Buffalo, but participate in a preseason. Old school J-Rocc, Daddy. Sure, it's preseason. It really means nothing. You can say that till you're blue in the face. Well, it means something to the final 53 guys that are in there going to make the final roster, J-Rocc, Daddy. So if you don't view it as a serious thing, your time in the NFL is going to be seriously limited. Players on the team and had some success against last night. Those guys come. So, in the article I put out this morning, J-Rocc, to get ready for the 2015 NFL season. And I got to tell you, other than the defense, I mean, there's some excitable Paul Kruger's looking like Paul Kruger.
Yeah, let me jump in there real quick because you made it, at the end of tie-in because I'm the sport at the end of the season. I mean, I think if you're a good team, if you're coached well, then you believe defense that we hang our hat on and talk about here. I do believe that this is not, hey, it's just a guarantee 0-16. They're just going to be the worst team ever. I do believe that there's a lot of bright spots. I mean, hey, let's look at offense even before we go to the defense, and let's look at some bright spots. As I mentioned last night, seeing a bit of life out of the running game, especially with the defense that we were playing against. I mean, Terrence West played against the starters there, and he did better. I mean, obviously, there's still a lot of work.
He definitely did better, J-Rocc, Daddy. And like I said, it's nice to see some Cleveland Browns smash mouth football, run the ball down their throat. Type of attitude, especially against the front seven of the Buffalo Bills. These guys are not bums. That's one of the best defensive front seven in all of the NFL. But
absolutely,
and as you know as well as I know, but you're not going to be able to run on every play, man. You can't do it. You got to get down.
Trust me, That's the problem that Brian Hoyer and the Browns ran into last year is once those teams said, okay, we're going to change the field, we're going to make you beat us down the field, we're going to crash the box, that was when the Browns season fell apart because they did not have the ability to get over the top of any defenses. And once they showed teams that was it. And I honestly believe that this is a very, very similar situation. I mean, think back, and Dan and I were just talking about this on Monday, Dan Wismar, when he joined us, is how amazed were we for the first 5 or 6 games last year at how wide open guys were running for the Browns back in the secondary because they caught teams by surprise. And as long as Hoyer was able to find those guys open, even when he threw bad passes, the guys were so wide open that the Browns offense was able to do some amazing things early. And then, bam, that all headed downhill.
Wasn't one of those guys gone this year, though, J-Rocc Daddy, that were able to get down the field and wide open? Our tight end, Jordan Cameron, I mean, was he here last year, or am I dreaming?
Absolutely, and that's what I mean when you look at, one of the main pieces they brought in to counter that and to have a weapon, him not being able to play. And I've got to be honest, that was something. The health of Dwayne Bowe concerned me when we signed him. Not that he wasn't healthy now, but would he be able to stay healthy? Because when you get into that mid-30s, when you get into that area, it becomes a risky proposition year to year where the guy's going to be. The fact that he's having trouble getting loose early really concerns me. Other than that, I'd be all
and J-Rocc Daddy, he's had a whole off season to prepare for a second shot in a career that could be pretty much over. Because let's face it, man, I tell you right now, this guy. He was a good receiver at one time, okay? But you got to think that a guy that came in from the Kansas City Chiefs, who's a pretty, the Chiefs are a pretty competitive football team, J-Rocc Daddy.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you something, man. Andy Reid is no bum when it comes to talent evaluation. And I'll even go a step further and say that Andy Reid, as far as being a good talent evaluator, has far more experience evaluating talent than anybody in the Cleveland Browns building right now, man. Andy Reid's been around the game. He's had some great football teams. He's had some great quarterbacks that were able to get the ball down the field when he was with the Eagles all those years. He's seen some receivers that were able to get down the field, run their routes. For Andy Reid to say, okay, let's let Bo go, that means to me that Bo go all right. Bo go right out of the National Football League because I got to say, Andy Reid's not a loudmouth. You don't get a lot of the press some big-time coaches like Pete Carroll did. But Andy Reid, in my opinion, is one of the best coaches in the National Football League presently, J-Rocc Daddy. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, I agree. Absolutely. And I mean, hey, we're talking about the age of an experienced veteran wide receiver. Brian Hartline fits that category as well. And he's a physical specimen, and he's out there. And again, every player is different. It's just another concern because many times the problem with a Browns season is not the talent overall, it's the depth of that talent. And the minute a few guys start getting plucked down, then you've got the dregs of the roster coming after that. And while the Browns have worked on building that depth, I mean, here we're not even talking about, you know what happens, Larry. How many seasons have we gotten to week 12 and we're just looking for players to put on the field at this point because guys are hurt and guys are dogging it and guys are done for the season. And if you're starting out with significant concerns in that direction, that's a bad start because the NFL is a season of attrition. Basically, the teams that win are the teams that can survive the injuries and stay alive and keep themselves strong throughout the season. That's always been a problem.
Those are the teams that have the proper amount of depth. They have a coaching staff that has a lot of experience. Let's not forget. I mean, I like Mike Pettin, and this is not a slam against Mike Pettin, J-Rocc Daddy. by any sense of the means is this a slam against Mike Pettin. But I have to say, we can't lose track that this is only his sophomore year as an NFL head coach. That's number one. Number two, I firmly believe that Ray Farmer put Mike Pettin in his place during the off season, and there was a little bit of hostile anxiety between the two of those fellas, especially when it comes to who's going to be playing quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. And number three, we don't have a coaching staff on this team right now. I'm talking offensive coordinator-wise, head coach, defensive coordinator. I mean, these guys have only been together. The OC's here for his first year. The head coach is here for his second year. The defensive guy's here for his second year, although him and Pettin have plenty of experience working together in the years past, J-Rocc Daddy. But the continuity of teamwork hasn't really been established in the coaching staff, let alone a talent evaluation. Ray Farmer, first year GM last season. I mean, come on, J-Rocc Daddy. We got a lot of growing pains to get through, and before I can feel confident that these guys can build a good football team. And what I'm seeing right now, I'm not confident that we're going to have a good football team, J-Rocc Daddy. Unfortunately, unless I'm completely 100% wrong, we're in for more of the same. And actually, I don't even think we're going to win 7 games this year, J-Rocc Daddy. I can't see it happening with the quarterbacks. I think we're going to be surprised, man. Maybe we're going to see Terrell Pryor get a shot at quarterback. I mean, what are you going to do, man? They brought him here for something.
I'll tell you what, man, this season, the way it looks like the quarterbacks may play, they may get Richard Pryor at quarterback here at least, try to get some comedy out of it. All joking aside, I hear you there, and that is one of my concerns, biggest concerns here about this team is exactly what you just said, offensively there, man. I mean, and I'll tell you, the other one to me, and this is what's hard for me to judge with the defense not being completely intact right now, is for all the talk about maniacs around the ball and dog defense and all of that stuff, when the first was against the first, when the studs were against the studs, the Browns once again got pushed off the ball on third down, and they were unable to stop Buffalo from doing anything. I believe the starting unit was 5 for 5 on third down for Buffalo. I could be wrong about that. In the rest of the game, they were 6 for 13 overall, but the starting unit was either 4 for 4 or 5 for 5 on third downs during their time out there against the Browns starting defense, and that concerns the heck out of me and should concern anybody. And offensively for the Browns, their inability to convert the first downs. No matter what unit it was, they all stunk at it. The Browns were only 3 for 12 on third down against Buffalo last night. So, I mean, we all know what the problems are going to be.
One thing that I can feel, the only thing I feel a little bit confident in, that we're going to see a better defensive front line come the start of the regular season. Oh my God, here we go again. We're not going to be able to stop the run. Oh boy.
Oh no, that's the one. Although last night was a tough test a lack of a.
I liked what I saw coming out. I'm going to see a little bit more.
Let's talk about some good things. Paul Kruger, good performance. Armand in the game, but he was getting after it. Xavier Cooper showed to get after it. That's a guy there were guys, but see if that can translate over into the regular season.
The only comment right now, and I'm not confident at all in doing.
May at least be able to believe Justin Gilbert of them 2 seasons from now, to be honest with you. So Browns draft of that year. Although the rest of it seems to avert to me is just unredeemable. Just talking the offseason about how he's gonna, and he is so lucky to have been drafted. There was no Johnny Manziel. Justin Gilbert would have been just assaulted last. Manziel's boost making and all young guy. Oh, he's gonna get in. Justin Gilbert is looking to me like a guy that it's not about the light coming on. I don't believe that he is gonna be able to physically match up at the NFL level.
Yeah, I don't really feel very confident that he will match up at the NFL level either. And that brings us back to the statement I made a little while ago about the talent evaluation of this Cleveland Browns front office, J-Rocc Daddy. I mean, let's face it, any time you go into a draft and you take a player, you're taking a gamble, too. Everybody's a gamble, because what you do in college does not translate well onto the NFL field. The college game is not the same as the NFL. The speed of the game's a lot different. The talent level in the NFL, it may be 0.5% of everybody that played college football, J-Rocc. So, with that being said, I agree with you. Gilbert seems to be a disappointment. But that takes us back to another comment I made. I've never seen an NFL football team waste on draft picks with the Cleveland Browns over the last 15 years. It's really to the point of ridiculousness, man.
It is. But, you know, that conversation doesn't do us any good here on a Friday afternoon. I'm with you on that, but conversation that we're never going to get out of because they've been so terrible at it for so long. But you know what? Let me end it with this.
And it all comes back down to the same thing, the continuity of the front office, J-Rocc Daddy.
Absolutely. And it's hopefully by staying together for a couple of seasons here, we may see that start to change. I'm not convinced either
We can
way,
only hope and pray.
Give me something good. We've seen guys hurt. Justin Gilbert's been out. We've seen, Dwayne Bowe. We've seen these guys out. Give me one or two guys that are now on your radar to make this team that have stuck out to you in the first couple games.
Honestly, J-Rocc Daddy, Irving's obviously doing a fair job on the offensive line. We knew he was
that's a big pick.
So,
that's a given that he's going to make the team. But I mean,
right? I'm not giving you anything
Cooper,
that really.
Even though Cooper's a pick,
it's honestly, J-Rocc Daddy, I haven't seen anything that really has blown me away from anybody on the Cleveland Browns thus far. Now. There was talk about how bad the Cleveland running game was, and, I got to say, Terrence West really did a great job last night for what he did. We're going to have to unfortunately, I'm not ready to make any bold predictions until probably after Game 3, because you know as well as I do, that should be your last hurrah for who you think is going to be your starting people when the first game kicks off. But I say we got to sit back, we got to wait until Game 3, and then we also have to hope that something magical is going to happen this next week, that these guys are going to gel together as a football team that we haven't really seen yet in the first two preseason games, J-Rocc Daddy. And again, I don't know where that comes from. Obviously, on paper, the talent level that the Cleveland Browns have should be pretty good, but we haven't seen pretty good yet, have we, J-Rocc?
No, and one of the problems about what you said is that, going back to circle this all the way around as we wrap this up, the third preseason game is all about getting your starting group ready, and this team will not be doing that in their third preseason game because so many of those guys, and I go back to the quarterback thing as well, be an injury situation with McCown. The Browns now are going to be in a scramble situation here as far as where do you go, because very quickly, regardless of Browns had, you've lost Connor Shaw, and you may potentially now for 4 or 5 weeks be without Josh McCown as well. Obviously, even if you're of the camp, bump Johnny Manziel up to starter, throw him in the fire and see what happens, which I wouldn't, at this point, when you're getting ready for the season, that may be a better option than throwing a street guy in there, is to have the guy that's at least been in your offense for the whole off season. That being said, whether Manziel would be your starter or your backup or something needs to be done, that would leave a huge hole, even bigger than the normal quarterback hole for the Browns, because you don't even know who could come into that slot. With Pryor not being able to practice for all this time here now and being hemmed up, that really leaves the Browns in kind of a lurch there. But even if McCown's healthy, I got into this argument with some fans this morning. They said, hey, saw enough of McCown last night. I said, I'm with you. It was a garbage performance. Need to see Manziel against the ones on Thursday or on Saturday. And I said, but that's not the purpose of Week 3. If in Week 3 we're going, hey, let's see what the other guy can do, then we're screwed come the regular season, because while all these other teams are getting their team ready for Week 1, we're still making guesses on who's going to be in the lineup. And at that point, brother, it is going to be a worse. If that's where they're at the end of this preseason, it's going to be worse than you think. And so we'll have to see. But it's going to be a big question now because the Browns
J-Rocc,
are saying McCown's not got the broken thumb. Well, I'm just saying, LG, but he missed 5 games with this injury last year. I've got a sneaking suspicion that we're going to be without Josh McCown for a couple of weeks here, which means where do the Browns go? Does Manziel just get the gig for now, or do they go and scramble and try to find a Rex Grossman, try to find somebody like they normally do, like a Jason Campbell, somebody that they found in the past to come in and be that guy?
Well, I got to tell you something, J-Rocc Daddy. I'm always a little bit what I would call
pessimistic?
I don't know. Well,
I'm just kidding.
Even
You're
deeper
realistic.
than that, like
You're
paranoid
realistic.
or doubting. I find it hard to believe that Terrell Pryor is as beat up as they all say he is, that his hamstring is so bad he can't do this and he can't do that and he can't do this. What if the Cleveland Browns are saving him because they wanted to see what Connor Shaw was going to be able to do? They already pretty much know what I'm just saying that's pretty much a skeptic or I'm crazy.
See, I disagree
or
because he needs to prove that he can be a wide done that. I got to be honest with you. If he doesn't play in week 3, he's not my gut feeling, and I've talked to some people down in Berea that say the same thing. He is now in the danger zone of not making this roster. So I disagree with what you're saying. The Browns want him out there right now, and he has been unable to go. And all he's going to do is cost himself a spot on this team if he doesn't get it together, because all he had to do was show in the games what he was showing in practice, and he would have had himself a roster spot locked up. And now he has very quickly gone from the surprise of camp to, hey, we need to see Terrell Pryor in weeks 3 and 4 if we're going to give him a spot on this. As I said,
Daddy, it goes back to what I am. Back to the thing. Here's a guy, receiver, admittedly himself, he said he never was very good at catching the football. I mean, I think that's so funny. It's unbelievable funny. That should be on comic relief, J-Rocc Daddy, because why would you go out and say, oh, you know what, this guy's got so much talent, we don't doubt it for a second that he's going to be a great wide receiver in the NFL. It takes years to develop. It takes time to learn how to run the route. I mean, you know as well as I do, there were some pretty good receivers that never made a great career in the NFL because they were not good route runners. So now you're going to say to yourself, well, let's take a guy that never did anything at the wide receiver position, and let's tell everybody he's going to be a wide receiver. We know we got garbage for quarterbacks on the Cleveland Browns team, and we know that this guy worked with the offensive coordinator that we brought in from Oakland, and we know he knows some of the system, and we know that he won a few games with this OC at the quarterback position. I mean, I don't think anything like that made sense to me when they did it. I still don't buy the story, and I still think we're going to see this guy throwing a football sooner or later.
Well, I thought that was quite possible, too, to be honest with you. And so it's very much still in the possibility, but he's got to get out there.
Because we sure don't have anybody else we can count on.
Well, that's the thing. I thought for sure that was what was going to lock him up a roster spot, to be honest with you, was his ability to also be the emergency third quarterback. So that'll be interesting, because if not, we're going to start doing what I'm doing right now. And because if this is a worst-case scenario for the Browns over the next couple of days, they may be scouring the market now. I mean, who's out there? I mean, who? Michael Vick, is he on a roster somewhere, right? Because those are the types of names that you're going to start hearing. Tyler Thigpen, Rex Grossman, who I mentioned earlier, Jason Campbell. Those are the types of names that you're going to hear. I don't know if those guys have teams. I'm not sure I know they were free agents heading into the offseason. I don't know if they even still have teams or not, but that'll be in the conversation there too for the Browns come very quickly, because they have no depth. Regardless of talent, they have no depth at quarterback anymore here, especially with this tenuous injury here perhaps to Josh McCown.
Now, what was with the extent of Connor Shaw's thumb injury, J-Rocc Daddy? I haven't followed it as closely as you might have, but what do you think? What do you think was the extent of his thumb injury?
Well, no, he had to have surgery and
possibility
everything. I
he could be
believe
back next week.
No. Connor Shaw is down for like half the season, isn't he? He's looking at 10 weeks or so before he's able to participate. I could be wrong about that, but last I heard, I mean, he did have to have it reset.
Like I said, I haven't really followed the situation as closely because, like I told you, honestly, I have had it. It's hard for me to believe I'm saying this, but I have had it with Cleveland Browns football, man. I mean, 56 years of being a Browns fan, and really, I haven't seen anything this year to make me constantly believe that we're going to be a competitive team. And I'm to the point in my life, and I know I probably said this before, but I can't even justify wasting the 4 hours every Sunday of my life thinking that I'm going to be staying in front of that TV hoping for a last-minute comeback win or some domination of football by the Cleveland Browns that will blow somebody out, because I don't see it happening, J-Rocc, Daddy. I just don't. And that's pretty sad because you know me. I don't even sound that excited like every other year before. I mean, you know, every year I've talked to you, at this point in the season, I'm pretty damn excited about what's going to happen, right?
Absolutely. You definitely don't have that same enthusiasm this year, LGZ.
Well, I can't see anything to be that enthused about, and I'm sorry to have to say it, but I'm pretty damn disappointed is basically how can you even put yourself in a situation and call yourself a professional sports franchise and be in this situation that the Cleveland Browns are in right now, man? They did it to themselves. They didn't bring anybody in that
LG
is going to make a difference as far as the quarterback position goes.
Yep.
And now we got another dire straight season that we're going to have to live through.
I don't know, man. I'm not gonna jump off the cliff just yet, but I'm just talking about what I'm seeing. LG, my friend.
Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised, J-Rocc, Daddy. You never know.
Well, they know where to go but up as far as you're concerned, and I'm with you, and I hear you. As I said, I'm less optimistic than I've been in years. That being said, it's such a weird. This is the way I have to say it. I'm less optimistic for the season, even though I firmly believe that the Browns have their best core group of talent that they've had in a long time. I just think that the couple of key positions where they're thin are the couple of key positions to any football team, and I think that that's the problem. And the biggest one, of course, is under the center. We'll talk more about it. LG, my man, I got to bounce. Thank you very much for the call,
right,
my
J-Rocc,
friend.
Daddy, pleasure talking to you, and let's hopefully go Browns, huh?
That's right, man. Getting closer to Sunday. We've at least moved off the Thursday starts here now. We got a Saturday game coming up a week from tomorrow against Tampa. We'll see. It's the dress rehearsal. Let's see how ready they are for prime time. My man LG from Cleveland Sports 360. Always a good time. And I try to go, but it's like when I'm talking to Mikey B, man, Mike Brandenberry, talking some Indians. I try to be the yin to the yang, man. But back and forth it is. And it's funny because so many of you guys get a hold of me after these type of long conversations and go, man, I'm on this guy's side, or I'm with that, or et cetera and so forth. Kind of hit both sides of the conversation. There are tons of things that have me intrigued, and I really want to see the first half of next week's game and see what's out there. And obviously, many of these things will answer themselves as the time goes out. But that being said, I mean, many of these things concern me as well. The biggest being, what if there is some hardcore injury deal here that's going to be a 4, 5, 6 week deal with Josh McCown? Where the hell do the Browns go for the next solution at quarterback? We'll see. We'll talk about that next week when we come back. Dan Wismar will be here with us on Wednesday. We're not in the studio on Monday. Dan Wismar will be here with us on Wednesday. We'll talk about the upcoming game, preview it, look ahead, all that stuff. We'll know the situation with with Josh McCown and his thumb. So looking forward to that. We'll be talking some Buckeyes camp as well. But that's next week. We're talking about that later. Now we're talking about sit tight. Don't go anywhere when we come back. Still a whole bunch more sports fixing to do. That's what we do, baby. J.R. Smith back in the saddle with the Cavaliers. We'll talk about that. Indians take care of business last night. The Yankees, I'll tell you, I don't know about anybody else, but if they just played the Yankees a bunch, the Indians would be all right. We'll talk about the win last night, look ahead the rest of the series here this weekend. They've got a makeup game coming up with Chicago while they're on the road as well. We'll talk about all of that, set the stage for the weekend and more. Don't go anywhere. Still plenty more Sports Fix to come right up after this. If you leave, I will come and find you one by one. Think I'm joking? Click. No, I'm just kidding. Just stick tight. We'll be right back.
I got my sisters with me. I got all my sisters with me. Everybody, we are
And now, a very special announcement from the Sports Fix.
Black bears weigh between 200 and 500 pounds. Brown bears weigh between 300 and over 1,000 pounds. Black bears run away from you. Brown bears bear. Simply lie still on the ground and cover your face and head with your hands. When the bear has finished batting you around and mauling you, contact the U.S. Forest Service.
And that was a message from the Sports Fix.
Guys, want to take just a second as we head into this break and remind you about the official business printing source of the Sports Fix, our friends at Signs and Ship. Signs and Ship, I'm telling you, Chris and Pam, they've taken care of me since day one, and they can do the same for you. Whether you're a small business that's already been established and you're looking to grow to that next level and expand your business, or perhaps you've got an idea that you just know is going to be a great business and you need to figure out how to brand it and how to promote it and put it out there, Signs and Ship is the place for you. If you need a logo, they can create one for you. They have a fantastic graphic designer. Business cards, signs, banners, yard signs, mobile advertising, anything you can think of that you need to promote your business, they've got it at Signs and Ship. The best thing about them, too, is each of their locations, whether it's the home base here in Elyria, Ohio that I work with, or their spots in Virginia, Florida, and Pennsylvania, it's all local sourced. Very important to me because we all understand that small business is the lifeblood of the community. So check them out, signsandship.com, or call Chris and Pam today, 440-323-6060, the home office in Elyria, Ohio. Signs and Ship, quality printing at affordable prices.
It's the Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Yeah. Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs.
The trophy's 12 feet high, and it is glorious!
Football, baseball, hoops, you name it, they have it. Plus, they have awesome draft kits and party supplies to make all your preseason activities the envy of everyone. If your league needs a ring, belt, or trophy, or you want to upgrade what you already have, there's literally only one place to go. If you're going to be a fantasy jock, do it right.
It's mine, the most magnificent belt ever created, and it's mine.
With America's Fantasy Sports Superstore, FantasyJocks.com.
What's your fantasy?
No football? No problem at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted. From their awesome Wing Mondays to every single Cavaliers and Buckeye Hoops games in full HD.
Kyrie split to D, goes inside, teardrops it home right down Euclid. That's way up in there for two.
The excitement never stops. Every day of the week brings a different set of food and amazing drink specials.
And now,
fans, Harry Buffalo North Olmsted is the home for every UFC pay-per-view live on the big screens.
Let's get it all!
And let's not forget their mouth-watering trademark, the Bison Burger.
They sure are good.
Nobody does bison like Harry Buffalo. The perfect combination of healthy and delicious.
Hey there, eat up, y'all. You's as good church-going folk. Y'all deserve a little treat.
What are you waiting for? Get to Harry Buffalo, just outside Great Northern Mall today. Harry Buffalo. Join the herd.
This is head coach Gary Waters at Cleveland State, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix, wrapping things up here across the Sports Fix Radio Network. My man Mike Brandenberry normally joins us here. He is in his final training here, his final steps to, he's running a half marathon this weekend. And matter of fact, let's see. He said I had to give him, he said, no pressure, J-Rocc, but if you could give me about an hour and 40 minutes of solid show so I can get my last run in while I'm listening. Otherwise, I've got to listen to other stuff. So we came pretty close, Mike. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Mike will be back with us next week. Jonathan Knight as well, sports writer extraordinaire. He'll be back in the saddle next Friday when we get back at it. Matter of fact, we'll be doing it. Preview final day next week before I jump off into the play-by-play world. So we'll talk a little bit about that next Friday. We'll be quite busy when we get back at it, going to South for that first game. But Jonathan Knight will be back in the house, as will my man Mike Brandenberry. Speaking of in the house, we're not here on Monday. As I've mentioned to you guys before, I have an incredibly long weekend, about 550 miles, 4 matches, in 32 hours. So it's going to be an incredibly crazy weekend. And if I do indeed survive, I will not be in this studio on Monday. So we are preempted on Monday. We will be back live Wednesday next week. BJ Riddell will be here in the house, our guru, the author of Fantasy Football for Winners. He'll be here for our first fantasy football segment. We will talk to BJ about offensive players here and get you ready at some of the skill positions for your drafts coming up. We'll do defenses and special teams the next week. We'll do some draft strategy as well, get you all set for the regular season. BJ Riddell makes his debut next Wednesday. Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan and Everybody Hates Cleveland will be in the house as well. We'll talk about the Indians, we'll talk about the Cavs, talk about the Browns, the Buckeyes, all of that stuff when we're back in studio next Wednesday live. That would be Wednesday the 26th of August. We will be live back here in the studio. And remember, speaking of fantasy football, if you want to join our fantasy football challenge, it's free to the public, brought to you by fantasyjocks.com, and the winner will get a custom championship belt courtesy of fantasyjocks.com for you guys for winning the Sports Fix Fantasy Football Challenge. It's free to enter. All you've got to do, drop me a line and let me know that you would like the chance to be a part of the Sports Fix Fantasy Challenge. Email me, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Drop us a line on Facebook or Twitter, facebook.com/thesportsfix. I am under my name, Jerry Myers, Myres. You can send me a message directly on Facebook. You can tweet with us at the Sports Fix CLE. Say I'm interested in being a part of your Sports Fix Fantasy Challenge, and we will do our best to get you in the mix there. And somebody is going to win an incredible championship belt courtesy of Fantasy Jocks. BJ Riddell in the house for his first Fantasy Football for Winners segment on Wednesday here. We mentioned it earlier in the show as we wrap things around. And you know what, real quick, going back to my last talk here, my last segment, we were talking some Browns, and then LG joined us. And, you know, I get the up and the down nature of things, and some people pessimistic, some people optimistic. The defense, I mean, again, I go to some of the good things that I saw out of the Cleveland Browns defense and what I look forward to. Here's the thing to me. What scares me is that I see a lot of great defensive performances wasted this upcoming season. I see a lot of game. You know what the Browns defense makes me feel like? The Indians pitching staff. That's what the Browns defense feels like to me coming into this season, is you're going to have a very hardworking section of your team, much like the Indians pitching and their starting pitching has been, that will keep you in every game. They'll give you the chance to win every game. They will have some unbelievably strong performances, but it may just be one run late. It may just be one broken play, one long pass, one pass interference, one play too many, because you've left the pressure on the pitchers, on the defense, for whatever scenario you want to put it. Look at the Indians. How many times, and we talked about it last year and 2 years ago, coming down the stretch where they had to pitch perfect. If they didn't, they'd lose a 2-1 game or a 3-2 game, and it would be just such a waste because of the level of the talent you were getting, the level of the pitching you were getting. And the same thing, I think, we may be dealing with a lot of that with the defense of the Browns this year, where they do their job. The Browns perhaps lose a lot more 14-10 games or those types of things where for 45 minutes the Browns defense held its own with anybody, and they'll break on a drive late because they've been out there all day. They've been exposed to one too many drives, one too many series, etc., and so forth. So that's my biggest fear, is that the Browns defense plays a cameo role, guest starring as the Indians starting pitching this year. So let's hope that the offense can do their part. Look, we're going from one season to the other. Hell, I think the Indians had a shot at outscoring the Browns last night until late in the game. But from one to the other, still having problems getting the offense on the board. But defensively, again, I think they're going to be strong. I just worry that they're going to be like the Indians pitching. So circle back around. I mentioned at the beginning of the show, J.R. Smith announces yesterday, cost himself a few $1 million to do it here, but he is re-signed with the Cavaliers here. It looks like it's going to be a 2-year deal. While the team doesn't confirm dollar amounts, I'm hearing 2 years, $10.5 million. J.R. Smith had a 1-year, $6.5 million option that he could have taken for this upcoming season. He decided to go gamble on himself, as many guys say, and go out there and try to find a bigger deal. And apparently there wasn't one to his liking that was at least big enough. I'm not going to say that he didn't have offers, but obviously one wasn't good enough to walk away from the Cavs, because he instead came back to the Cavs. Basically, he left money on the table because he has the option next year that he can get out of. He can collect, like I said, $10.5 million over the next 2 years, or he can get out after this one season and get back out there under the free agent market. But he basically, shaved a few $1 million perhaps off. Also guaranteed himself a few $1 million in case something happens a year from now, and he gets himself back in the fold as the Cavs. Really, that was the last piece that the Cavs, I think, were going to look to put together here to get themselves to come into this season coming up. And Smith, a big part of what the Cavs did in the regular season, a big part of what they did in the playoffs up until the finals, when he really kind of imploded under the weight of playing in the playoffs for the first time. But I think without all the injuries, J.R. Smith is the key role player that any good championship caliber team needs. And as I mentioned before, you need J.R. Smiths to get you through the regular season. It's an 82-game grind, man. And the Cavaliers have now got 12 players under contract, 8 of whom did their contracts again this summer. There was a lot of work for David Griffin to do, and the Cavs have now got most of that done, as they've got 12 players under contract. The payroll as it sits right now, $95 million. Luxury tax is at $85. So right now the Cavs are $10 million over the luxury tax, and they'll be paying 3-1 on the luxury tax there. So they'll be paying $30 million in tax for that $95 million payroll. Last one to fall, going to be Tristan Thompson here when they stop playing chicken and get that final deal finalized there, Tristan Thompson and the Cavaliers. But J.R. Smith back in the fold, and now one more step to get into October and getting things rolling for the Cavs as they look to defend their Eastern Conference crown and add that NBA championship to the trophy case. The Cleveland Indians are in the Big Apple here as we get ready to wrap things up, taking on the Yankees, who they've had much success against here in the season so far in the late stretch. The Yankees trying to hold off Toronto over there in the East, and the Indians have kind of been their albatross, as the Indians have taken 3 out of 4 in just the last week and a half from the Yankees as they took that game last night. And 3-2 victory for the Indians. Snapped a 3-game winning streak for the Yankees. Their lead over Toronto now just 1.5 games for New York. The Indians were part of a bad stretch for the Yankees the week before when they took several games in that series at Progressive Field. And now the Tribe looking to get out here. Masahiro Tanaka on the mound for the Yankees, taking on the Indians tonight. We've got Carlos Carrasco, Cookie on the mound for the Indians. 11-9, 3.63 ERA for Carrasco. Tanaka 9-5, 3.56. This should be a very good pitching matchup. 67-53 for the Yanks. Indians, what do you know? Every time we do this, they're back to 8 games under 500. 56-64. Tribe sits 6.5. Oh, speaking of Mike running, right now he's going to bash his head into the nearest pole if I even mention that they're 6.5 games back in the wild card. Indians, Carrasco taking the mound tonight for the Yankees. Then they've got the remainder of the series coming up here before you've also got Chicago on the back end. Don't forget, as they've got to make up that game in the doubleheader. But you've got 7:05 tonight, Carrasco and Tanaka. Salazar and Severino tomorrow for the Indians. Trevor Bauer, C. Sabathia going at it on Sunday for the Tribe and the Yankees. And then on Monday, they've got to make up that game that was rained out from earlier in the season. They've got a 2:05 start against Chicago, the Cubbies. It's Corey Kluber and John Lester. Should be a good one there. Then they're back home with Milwaukee coming up. Remember, there's a short one here. I think it's a 5-game homestand and then another 10 games on the road, as the Indians had a long stretch there of 26 out of 30, and they're in the midst of that stretch now. We'll talk about all of this stuff, how the Tribe did here as they come back home with Milwaukee on Wednesday when Dan Wismar joins us as well. As I mentioned, BJ Riddell will be in the house. Fantasy Football for Winners, the first segment there. If you guys want to come out and check me out, I will be at the Meadville County Fair. Yeah, Crawford County Fair in Meadville. Let's get it right. Crawford County Fair in Meadville, Pennsylvania, tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock. The Honky Tonk Man, the greatest Honky Tonk Man, will be there in action and signing autographs. Tomorrow evening, Saturday, those of you here in Northeast Ohio, come on out to Willoughby South High School. Very easy to find over there off of Shankland Road in Willoughby. Ethan Carter III, the heavyweight champion. He's an alma mater. He graduated there. He's an alumnus, I guess would be the word there, of Willoughby South. He will be defending his world championship against yours truly. Tickets are $10 at the door, $5 for students. Bell time at 7:30 p.m. I may even have to bring some friends. I have to call some North Rangers to come and keep me some company here when we go and steal the title from old boy EC3. But come on out. It's a fundraiser for the Willoughby South Athletic Department. It's a great time for a great cause. Willoughby South Gymnasium, right out there at Willoughby South High School. Come see me in action Saturday night, 7:30. Sunday, Erie, Pennsylvania at noon for PWR. Rhino, the man beast from WWE, he'll be there on the show. And then Sunday evening, I'll be in Lorain, Ohio for MAW Wrestling. And all of the details for that are on my Facebook and Twitter. I'm going to come check you out this weekend. I look forward to seeing you guys there. Enjoy some wrestling. Enjoy the fights. Enjoy the Indians. Enjoy the preseason action going on this weekend. And come on back here. Not Monday, Wednesday next week. Hump Day edition live as BJ Riddell joins us. Fantasy Football for Winners. Dan Wismar from Everybody Hates Cleveland is in the house. And you and me, baby, doing what we do best. The Sports Fix thing. We love you, Cleveland and beyond, and look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. Enjoy the weekend. We'll see you 5 days from now, or maybe 4 or 3 if you listen to the show on Saturday or Sunday, or you may be listening on Monday. So no matter when you're listening to the great time, you guys, we'll see you Wednesday at noon live, baby, right here on the Sports Fix.
Survival's a must on these streets. We hustle, don't sleep. Out here in Cleveland, Cleveland. It's cold, wet, hate up in this city, bitty city. If you well, put your hands up. Yeah, 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 yeah.